Yes, sir. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Uday.
Thank you for having me.
All right, here we are, Grappling Monthly. This is a brand new platform to celebrate all things grappling on the mats, behind the scenes, and in the overarching community in Southern California. So thank you guys for joining us. Before we start, I want to acknowledge and thank Professor Erica Don for lending us this beautiful space. If you guys are wondering where this is, it's Legacy West Valley in Northridge, California. Brand new school that opened in October 2024. Newest location in the Legacy Brazilian Jiu Jitsu family under Alberto Crane. It's owned and operated by Professors Erica Don and Gloria Kevorkian. It offers Brazilian Jiu Jitsu classes, gi and no gi, Muay Thai, and tac fit, as well as much more.
So and a great environment.
Yeah.
Great environment. Awesome culture.
Yeah, it's a beautiful gym in all ways. So for more information on the location, I'll put the link at the end, legacywestvalley.com. Be sure to check it out for information on programs, schedules, and location. And if you're enjoying what we're doing here, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us across our platforms, whether it's the podcast, the YouTube channel, or the social media. Your support's going to help us basically try to do our best in showcasing the art, the culture, and the community around grappling of all types. So. All right.
Nice.
Without any further ado,
Let's do it.
Let's jump into it, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Professor Uday Malhotra.
What's up, America?
Former D1 wrestler.
Yeah.
Former IBJJF no gi world champion.
Indeed.
Second degree black belt, second or third?
Third degree, yeah.
Third degree black belt.
Degree, yeah.
And instructor at Gorilla Den BJJ.
Yep.
As well as Legacy Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
That's right.
It's quite the resume, my man.
Thanks, dude. Thanks. Yeah, it's been a fun journey to get here, and it's never linear, right? But it's also a lot of fun. So.
Nice. I'm excited to have you here. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And getting us started.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. So basically, the format. We're going to get to know you a little bit. I'm excited, actually, to dive a little bit into your story, kind of get to know you, your philosophy on grappling, and the impact that it's made on you.
For sure.
Whether it's on the mat or outside the mat, both.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start at the beginning.
Okay. Let's do it.
So for grappling, it's not just Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for you. Tell me a little bit about how you got started. How'd you get started?
Yeah.
Grappling?
So I have been grappling since the age of 11 years old. I'm 42 now, so it's been a lot. It's a lifetime, essentially, right?
Nice.
And I started my grappling journey started in wrestling, as you know, and I used to be a roly-poly little fella, and I got picked on quite a bit, and I wasn't very athletic, and I wanted to change that, right? I recognized something was wrong, not wrong, but something was not the way I wanted it to be, and I wanted to have change in that, right? And so I didn't really grow up in a culture where there were a lot of sports. My parents never watched sports, or never my older brother was never really into that stuff, and so I didn't really know how to play football or basketball. I mean, I played a little bit, right? But I was never really in deep in it, enough to want to play it as a part of a team. And so I found wrestling, and I was like, I could join this and pretty much be at the same, start at the ground level as everyone else who's going to be there for the most part. And this would help me build some confidence and not get picked on so much, right? And it worked, right? It built that confidence in me, right? And so that's why when I see little kids at the gym who are I hear stories yeah, he's getting picked on or bullied at school, it hits a chord with me. I'm like, okay, I want to take this kid under my wing and show him the way, right? And it's because someone did that for me, And so, starting my grappling career at a young age, I was able to really learn it, and I sucked. I was really bad when I started at 11, I would get my butt kicked, and I was having fun with it, Nice. I was getting my butt kicked. Despite the fact that I was getting my butt kicked, I was having a lot of fun learning this new sport, just being involved in the culture, right? Like, and learning something and feeling myself get just incrementally better every time I stepped on the mat, and making tiny little adjustments to get better, and feeling that, feeling those adjustments working, right? So maybe I sucked on day 1, and day 3 I sucked also, but I sucked a little bit less.
Yeah.
And then continuing that path of growth. And so I took that and I continued to grow. And in high school, I was, I got decent, and carried on through college at Northern Illinois University, where I was a walk-on, and eventually earned my stripes, and earned my way onto the team, and like getting to NIU was tough because I was in a room full of absolute killers. Like, these were guys, like to be honest, like coming out of high school, I had no reason to be on the mat with some of these dudes. And by the time I left, I felt like I could hold my own, right? Like, I wasn't like some of those guys I was never going to hold a candle to. But some of them I was like, okay, I belong, And so it was almost like that feeling of starting over again, when I walked into that wrestling room for the first time at NIU. And, during my time there, that was a really good team. We were a Division I team that was ranked in the top 15 consistently. And so it was really fun being part of that journey. And so to make a long story short, when I graduated, this is something I've been doing my whole life. Like, I moved to LA, and I was like, from Chicago, and I was like, well, what do I do now? Who am I now that I don't have this thing? Right. And so I kind of had to find like kind of readjust like what my day-to-day was, right? Like, I was working, but like I hate running, like, and I want to stay in shape, but like, how do I do that, and how do I have fun? And so there was this jiu-jitsu academy called Hollywood BJJ, and I'll never forget that moment, right? It was like a cold October night. Okay. And I walked in, I finished my workout, everything was sweaty, it was like windows were fogged, and I was like a kid in the candy shop, on the window, wiping the thing. I was like, what the heck? They're like wrestling in pajamas. Like, what's going on there? Like, I looked at it, I was like, I could do that. I could take these guys. Yeah, huh? Let me step in and try this. I walked in, Sean Williams, he's a BJJ legend. Shout out Sean Williams. Yeah, shout out to Sean Williams, man. And he's like, come on in, man. He was super welcoming, and kind of gave me the lay of the land, and let me kind of try it out. And there's another guy there, Warren Stout, who's also a former D1 wrestler, and he wrestled at Lehigh, and so we were able to kind of bond on that trajectory, right? And he kind of also gave me the lay of the land. Nice. And he owns Stout Jiu Jitsu, I believe, in Pittsburgh. So check that out as well. Shout out Stout Jiu Jitsu in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yeah, man. Me thinking I was gonna walk in there and like just mop up everybody. I could have been further, like from feet to floor, but then like, what the hell happened to my arm there? How'd you do that, right? Like how am I choking right now? Like, all kinds of different like ways of submitting me, and it was really, really cool. And initially, I was like, I'm just gonna do this until I get maybe like my blue belt, purple belt. Like, these guys are in this for life. Like, that's like, what is this? Like, yeah. And then like shortly thereafter, I'm like, no, this is a lifestyle. I'm in. Yeah. I'm in. And that was it, man. That was like the switch that I needed, right? Like, I met my wife doing jiu-jitsu, like when I have a hard day, it's always been like, okay, let it out of your system by heading to the mats, right? Like, get beaten up a little bit, beat up somebody a little bit, like be the hammer, be the nail. And when I'm having a good day, it's the same thing, right? Like, humble yourself, go to the mats, and like, so whether rain or shine, like, jiu-jitsu's always been there for me to be kind of an outlet, right? And now I'm really fortunate enough to be in a place where I'm able to share the things I've learned across my journey, and it's one of my favorite parts of jiu-jitsu right now, right? Like, being able to share throughout this 30+ year career journey, like, what works for me, what doesn't work, and also still be a student of the sport, right? Like, recognize that, like, how vast and deep this ocean is, and how little of it, like, I've adapted to. Yeah. And so like you think you've picked up so much, but like, it's a fraction, and there's so much out there, and so Yeah, and like I said, this is how I met my wife training, and my kids, like they have pulled it into their life a little bit, they're starting to kind of get into it as well. So it's been an amazing journey, and I look forward to this kind of continuing to be part of my lifestyle till the day it can't be, and I'm hopeful that like to my final days that this is something I'm doing.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Nice, bro.
Yeah.
Nice. For somebody who hasn't really grown up in a wrestling culture, right? In terms of that, like, can you?
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, walk me through maybe like the discipline and the practice that goes into wrestling in like a school like NIU.
So, jiu-jitsu and wrestling, they're like cousins. You know what I mean? And like jiu-jitsu, the idea is don't outwork someone, outthink them, have stronger technique, right? Like catch them, right? Like catch someone making a mistake and just lean on your technique so that if you're being attacked by a bigger, stronger opponent, you can use your wits to get you into a safe situation, right? In wrestling, it's kind of flipped that on its head, right? No pun intended, right?
Okay,
like in wrestling, it's almost like if someone's better than me, I'm gonna outwork them, and I'm gonna grind harder than they can grind, and I'm going to be the dog in the fight that stands the test of time, right? Like I'm gonna be the one that is left at the end of this battle. Maybe I'm not the best, but it will be because my heart is in this, the hardest, right? Like, and so that's where like the two worlds differ, and it's like it's really cool because when you can take both those concepts and smash it together, and you can live that, you become a really hard to beat grappler, right? Like it's almost like okay, you can kind of move and snap, right? And like when you can have that like that ability to like use the jiu-jitsu to kind of maneuver and like move and think, and then like you turn on the explosiveness of wrestling, like I said, you become a really hard person to beat.
100%.
And so in wrestling it's like all about conditioning, right? Like how can I condition myself further? It's about like explosive lifting, right? Like not just beach muscles, right? Like not just bench press and not just curls for the girls, right? But like really high level wrestlers, they're doing like Olympic style lifts to get those fast twitch muscles going, to get like the explosive movements going, right? Like clean and jerks, squats, right? Like these are the things that are going to make you more explosive. And I think these are the kind of things that jiu-jitsu athletes should be adopting, right? Like as a sport continues to grow and as a sport continues to evolve, the two can borrow from each other, and they 100%. Should borrow from each other, right? Like, and more so jiu-jitsu borrowing from wrestling, and that how do I become more explosive? Not that I always want to be explosive, but so that I have it in my back pocket, and I need to kind of pull that lever, right? I can always like explode.
Turn that switch
exactly,
on, Yeah, definitely complementary skill sets.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on my next question, was how do you get involved in BJJ?
Yeah.
Do you think that you would have gone through those doors if you hadn't had that wrestling background? Like, would it have been too kind of daunting, too foreign, or you think that?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I guess we'll never know, but
I don't know. And I also recognize. I'll tell you this: it's intimidating walking through those doors for the first time.
100%.
Right? As someone who had years of grappling experience, it was still intimidating walking through those doors because, like, as an adult, it's uncomfortable and I don't want to say kind of weird to make new friends as an adult, right? It's weird and uncomfortable to like try something new as an adult, and it takes a little bit, right? Like it takes you stepping outside your comfort zone, and we don't do that enough as adults. And I think that's one of the beauty of jiu-jitsu is that you're every time you're on the mat, you're trying to step outside your comfort zone.
100%.
And so when I first started wrestling, there was a kid who used to bully me, dude. Like he was on the wrestling team too, and he would say some terrible things to me. He's like, this like a really like, it's like you think back to it and you're like, what is wrong with you as a child that you would say this to another kid?
Kids are cruel though.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You think back as an adult, like, why would you say that? You know, like, and I look back at it, and he used to beat me up pretty bad in wrestling, you know, and there was a point where he had the spot that I wanted, and
no way.
he had the starting spot, and I had to challenge him for it, and I beat the brakes off of
Oh,
him.
really?
And it
My
was
man.
a very, very like, it was like almost like inflection point in my jiu-jitsu, in my grappling career. You know, like it was like, hey, yeah, see, you can do it, dude.
Yeah, man.
You got over that mental hump. You got over that physical hump. You put your mind to this thing, you can do it. You know, and so, yeah, man, it was like those words and those actions that came towards me really, they got flipped on their heads a little bit too. You know, and so
Nice.
and it wasn't because of just the physical, it was because of the emotional change that went through me, right? Like I walked a little bit taller. I believed in myself a little more. I was able to talk to those girls a little easier, you know what I mean?
course,
Like I was a little bit more comfortable in my own skin, you know? Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
That's like it's a real life Karate Kid situation.
Kinda, yeah, you know.
You heard it here first, made for Hollywood. You know.
Come on, find me an agent.
Paramount,
Yeah.
HBO Max, hit us up. You know.
And honestly, man, like I hope that for any kid that is going through that, like they find, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's grappling, whatever that is for them.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, I really resonate with coding. Do that, you know, like find something that's gonna give you the ability to stand a little bit taller, you know, puff your chest out a little bit, feel a little more confident. And some kids, this is it, you know. Some kids it's not. That's okay, you know. But find the thing that is gonna give you the ability to just feel comfortable in your skin. Feel comfortable with who you are, you know?
I like it. That's good advice, man. You actually touched a little bit on the next thing too, which is teaching, right? Because you're actively teaching and coaching. You give privates, and we'll get a chance to learn about how to contact you and how to work with you on that. But I'd like to pick your brain about, like, basically, when did you start teaching or coaching? What did that look like, and how has that kind of evolved over time?
Totally. I started teaching fairly early, right? Because I was, when I was in college, we would do our summer camps for kids. And so I was a kid when I started coaching and teaching. I was like in college, you know, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. You know, I really enjoyed seeing like these little kids like taking to what I'm showing them. And I carried that forward when I came out here. Like, man, there's not really much wrestling out here. Like, I was blue belt, white belt, like showing people how to do these takedowns. And then I continue to carry that forward. So I've been teaching grappling probably since the time I was like 19, 20 maybe, you know, like 19 probably. And so now, like, and to answer your question, how has it evolved? It's like I teach and I coach with an approach that I would like, that I appreciate when I have a coach and teacher that I like the way, right? So I want someone who's going to be intense. I want someone who's going to believe in me. I want someone who's going to focus and pay attention to me regardless of if there's 3 people on the mat or 35 people on the mat, right? Or 300 people on the mat, right? I want someone that's going to be able to see me grapple and provide me feedback. I want someone that's got a positive attitude, right? Like, and so these are someone that is going to like fire me up, right? Like, I don't want someone who's going to be like sleepy, right? Like, I want someone who can fire me up and keep me excited. And so that's what I try and do when I coach and teach, right? Like, if you come to my classes, you will hear me lose my voice on an average Tuesday evening.
I can attest to that.
You know what I mean? Like, and people are like, why? Because A, it's exciting to me, right? And B, I want to give people what they, like what I would want, right? Like, I'm not going to be the guy that's sitting on the phone, like scrolling. I'm going to be like, hey, come on, you can do it right there. Like, put your left hand on his, you know, like, and like, actively shouting out people like, nice, beautiful, Sebastian. Yeah, take your left foot. Put it. You know what I mean? So like, I think that gets people excited. And when I coach at tournaments, it's the exact same thing, right? Because you want that consistency, right? Like, as an athlete, people look for that consistency. Yeah.
The getting older piece is something that, you know, ideally we're all lucky enough to get older, right?
Man.
So we made it to 40 and we're still kicking. What, you know, what advice or what approach do you recommend from your own experience to like alleviate some of that wear and tear?
I think it's be realistic with yourself, right? Like, look, as you get up there, life starts to change, right? You have other responsibilities. maybe you have a significant other, maybe you have kids, maybe you have a job that is demanding more time of you, maybe your body just doesn't, like, can't do the things it did 20 years ago, right? Like, all of these things, right? Be realistic with yourself. 20 years ago, maybe training 14 times a week was doable, right? Today, maybe you can be content with 4 or 5 times a week, right? But be intentional with that time, right? Like, when I go into train, I know that I have limited time, and I have limited time to be there. So I'm not here for a long time, but I'm here for a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I need to get in, guys. Let's go.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to fuck around. You know, I want to get some good training because I know that my time is limited. You know, I have to get back to work, or I got to make dinner for the kids. You know, like I got to pick the girls up from school, right? Like, whatever that looks like.
100%. So
I train with people. I try and find the right training partners that are going to be there for me and respectful of that, right? So also it also becomes about how do I adjust my training accordingly, right? Like, maybe I, have some X amount of really hard days of grappling, right? Really just I'm scrapping. And the other days I'm really just trying to think and flow and, like, tinker and toy, right? And, like, figure out how do I move and, like, one of the things I really, really enjoy is I like training with women who are really high level, and it forces me to, I don't want to lean on my athleticism, like my size or strength, right? When I train with women, because it's not fair, right? Like, if you take 2 black belts and one is bigger and stronger, the bigger and stronger one has a higher chance.
Make a difference.
You know what I mean? So I try and pull back on my size and strength and just lean into the flow, because it forces me to lean into the technique. And do I really have this technique down? And so, like you mentioned Erica earlier, I love rolling with Erica because she's very technical, really high technique, right? And so when I roll with her, it forces me to, like, okay, can I get this? Can I smooth my way into this, right? Like, and so on those days I'm feeling especially really beat up everywhere, rolling with, like, a black belt female is, like, it's good because they're also, like, trying to take my head off, right? But and then I pull back on the strength and size, like, it becomes like a chess match, So to answer your question, there's lots of things you can do. Lots of things you can do when you're feeling like, I don't have the time, I don't have the physicality of it right now. Train more efficiently. Be more intentional with your training. Train with the right people. Train, diversify what training looks like for you, right? Like, and be just more mindful of how often you're able to get in there, right?
I love it. I love that you're setting that intention. You know, that kind of gives you a focus, or an objective that you're working towards. So
I think as we grow, intentionality becomes more important in everything you do. Because there's 24 hours in a day. I have 2 kids. I have a full-time job. I have responsibilities in jiu-jitsu to teach. I have responsibilities for myself to maintain my jiu-jitsu.
Got to be a good husband too.
I got to be there for my wife, right? Like, all those things have to work together, right? And so, how do I maximize each of those buckets so that I'm doing right by everybody, myself included? You know what I mean? And so that's going to look different for everybody. But the idea of being intentional and thinking about it and making a plan is how you find success, right? If you don't think about it, you don't plan. Was the adage? Those who plan. Those who don't plan to fail.
Plan to fail, something like that.
Right? You plan it out. You have to bucket those things out and make sure you're showing up accordingly, right?
Nice. So since we're talking about family and also some responsibilities that are beyond the mats, you alluded to this earlier. You met Van, your wife, through jiu-jitsu.
Through jiu-jitsu,
right? And for those of us that may have not been there, there's a fairly special moment at this last year, I guess, right? December 2024?
November 2024.
November 2024. Pretty special moment at legacy graduation where you got to award Van her black belt, right? So, like, can you give us, like, a summary or just a snippet of, like, how you guys met to how did you manage to stay together all the way through having a family and, both being black belts?
Honestly, first of all, I want to say I'm so proud of her. She works so hard in everything she does. And for her to earn that black belt, she earned that thing, you know. And I'm a really hard person to get a belt from. And because I have high expectations for myself and for my students. And I want to see a lot out of you, right? And she, from purple to brown, it was like a 12, 13-year journey. And she had kids in between, you know. We had kids in between, you know, like there's a lot going on. And I say we had kids, but she actually carried the child, right? Like there's a big difference, you know. Like she had the physical burden of carrying that, right? And so carrying them, and so it's a lot, you know. And so to go back and answer your question, we met as blue belts together, and she already came in with background in both Kung Fu and MMA.
Nice.
And like she didn't have any fights, but she was training MMA style, right? And it's funny. She came into the gym, and I saw her. And also in October, I'll never forget, because I looked like an idiot because I was dressed in my Halloween costume. I had my hair set up for my Halloween costume.
Okay.
I was Mr. T, and so I shaved a mohawk into my head and left the sideburns. Because I was an idiot.
We're going to find a picture of this.
It's not hard to find. I'll send you one. And so here's this. I look like an idiot with a mohawk shaved into my head. And I walk up to her and I'm like, "Hi, my name is Uday." And she shakes my hand. She goes, "Hi, I'm looking for Sam." And she couldn't be less bothered with knowing anything about me.
Yep.
And
maybe it was the mohawk.
It was the mohawk. And so she had no interest in me at all whatsoever. And that's how we became friends through that journey. You know, we she signed up and we became buddies, and that friendship blossomed into me being like, "Hey, let's try this out. You want to date?" And she's like, "Not a chance, dude." And like,
For
okay,
real?
fine. Yeah, oh, dude. For like 2 years, she's like, "Not a chance in your life." And finally, she's like, we hang out in groups or as friends, just two of us hang out as buddies, and like, finally, she's like, "Okay, you know what? Let's give this thing a chance. Let's try it out." And the rest is history, you know. And she has been the one consistent thing in my entire jiu-jitsu journey. You know, I've had a chance to train under some amazing professors, like world-class jiu-jitsu instructors, all under one roof. And she has been kind of the consistent rock through my entire jiu-jitsu journey. Always been there for me in these like really tough moments, those losses, you know, like my body hurts, like I just got my butt kicked, you know, whatever. And she's also been there for me in the really happy moments, you know. When I won World, she was right there by my side, you know. She was the first one that gave me a hug, you know. Yeah, we get emotional now, you know, thinking about this stuff, thinking back, you know, like when I got my black belt, you know, when I got like all the most important moments in my jiu-jitsu journey, she's been there, you know, and all the most important milestones in my life, she's been there, you know. And so she's been people say it's an individual sport, right? But it's not. You need your community. You know what I mean? Like, I can't roll with myself.
That's it, right?
I can't. You know, I have a community I lean on.
Yep.
It's a hard mental warfare too, right? Like, she's always been there to pick me up. Hey, come on, man, you know, dude, don't worry. There's another tournament down the, you know, like celebrating the big moments and putting her arm around me during the hard moments, you know, and so she's been that for me. And so to be able to be there for her, when I gave her brown belt, I gave her her black belt, and to be able to be there for her in those moments, it was really special for both of us, you know. I was really happy to be able to be part of that for her and be part of that jiu-jitsu moment for her.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. You could feel that too when you were, those of us that were in the room, it was like, this is something you guys have been building together, right?
Man. And I hope that for our daughters, that we're able to tie that belt around them together one day too, you know. The jiu-jitsu, the black belts I wear right now, purposely only have my last name on them.
There you go.
Because I hope to one day bestow that belt with Van
Nice.
to my daughters, you know.
Amazing. It'll happen 100%.
Yeah. Hopefully. And look, their life is their own. It's up to them, right? Like, if they want to do it, I'm here.
Yeah.
If they don't, it'll kill me. But I also don't want to be that parent that's like, shoving this down their throat, and then they resent me for it, you know? So like, if they want to do it, it's there. I'm here. Hopefully that's the road they go down, and if not, that's okay too, you know? Just as long as they're happy, healthy, productive members of society, you know? So.
You know what you could do is you could, you know, give the local bully $5 to be like, just don't rough her up too much, but just nudge her
and
towards,
like,
you know.
Oh, you're back. You want to try this again, do you? Oh, well, come on in.
Diabolical, yeah.
Just kidding, Milena. She's going to be watching this at some point.
Yeah. 100%.
Just kidding.
We were talking about another kid.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah. Awesome. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a little break because my man needs another coffee. I need a coffee. And we're going to check that the sound and everything works. Because I got this paranoid moment just now that like, what if the mic's not working, right? So it's amateur hour out here. But yeah, we'll come back with some segments on industry, on cross-training.
Yeah.
Stick around for more.
Let's do it.
We're going to turn to some segments now. First one on industry.
Yeah.
And like the business of grappling is basically taken off, you know, in recent times, like crazy. You've been in the game, I think what you said was about approximately 30 years in grappling in general, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're looking at something like the business of grappling, gym ownerships, going pro, sponsorship, athletes, is there anything in those trends that really jumps out at you that you love, that is going on right now?
Yeah, I think, when I think about the business of grappling, I think about like how many schools are popping up right now. And I love it. I love it. It's like, it's hard. Like, I mean, as a business owner, I'm sure it's hard because like, you know, where do I open up a school? Like there could be one like not too far. This school that we're in right now, there's another really good school not too far, right? Like, so it's almost like, where do I open up? And if you open up one that is not a very saturated area, another one could open up, right? And so it becomes a bit of a challenge. And so I think the idea of a rising tide lifts all ships couldn't be more truer in this case, right? Like the fact that our sport is growing quick enough where a place like LA, every pocket of LA has several options. And what does that do? It forces everyone to step up what they offer, right? And it grows our sport. It makes everyone get better, right? It makes you and I as instructors to really force ourselves to make sure, hey, am I offering the best for my students? Am I giving them what they need to keep them here? And it brings in more people into this culture of ours, right? So I mean, it's certainly a challenge for business owners. I empathize with that. And I also recognize that it's good for the growth of the sport. And I truly, truly believe that a rising tide lifts all ships.
Nice.
And that if you offer the right product, people will come through the doors. People will come.
So that was going to be my question, actually. Like, what, for you, are the differentiating factors in a good grappling program?
Yeah, I think you have to have a kids program, right? Because that's the future of the sport, right? These kids are the future. And it gives parents an outlet for their kids to go to something, to learn something, right? To get them a little exhausted, if I'm being honest, right?
Of
like,
course, 100%.
Take my kids, exhaust them for a little bit so I can like work on some emails and I can take them home and they're ready for bed by after dinner. You know what I mean? So it gives them an outlet. So having a really solid fundamental kids program, fundamentally sound kids program is important because also that's where a lot of the money is, right? Like you build a solid kids program, those programs are what keeps the doors open and the lights on a lot of times. Now, what does a solid kids program look like? Okay, I think it looks like a couple things.
Okay.
I think it looks like really good technique. Okay, teaching them how to be bully-proof, right? Teaching them how to be safe. Teaching them how do we get out of bad situations, right? And I think more important than that, it's how do we have fun with this?
Right.
Right? Like, how do we just get comfortable being on the mat? How do we just embrace the culture of the mat, right? My kids were putting a little bit of pressure on themselves because there were kids in their class that were just better than them. They had been just picking it up faster.
Yeah.
So they were starting to feel like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yep.
And so I had to kind of pull the strings back a little bit. Like, hey, so take the pressure off them. Let's just roll in the garage. And what that looks like is just us, like, having fun.
Yep.
Just flopping around. Pass my guard. Come on, try and take me down, right? Just moving around. And they have so much fun with it. And they went from, Papa, I'm just like, I don't know, like, to begging me on Friday nights, like, Papa, can we please pick me up early from school? We can go do jiu-jitsu in the garage. Like, on Wednesday, Papa, is it time? Can we go? I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, we'll go. Anytime you want, dude, like, so having a really structured and fun and technically sound jiu-jitsu program for the kids is important. And that's a lot of needles to thread.
Yeah.
That's a lot of needles to thread, right? Because sometimes they kind of counteract each other, right? You have to teach the technique.
Yeah.
I almost called it vegetables, right? Like it's almost like
you got to eat your vegetables.
You got to eat your vegetables.
Yeah.
You got to learn the technique.
Yeah.
And you also have to have fun, right? And that's a lot of needles to thread, right? You can't have your dessert. You can't have the fun until you have the vegetables, right? Like, and the schools, the programs that run the best, thread those needles.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it begins. A solid kids program.
Nice.
I think as you evolve into a really good adult program, what does that look like? I've seen adult programs that have worked really, really well, and I've seen adult programs fall on their faces. And the difference is how you show up for your students. Are you helping them evolve? Are they feeling the growth? No, if not, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
And how do we make our students feel the growth? Fortunately or unfortunately, it probably means you got to roll with them a little bit. You have to be willing to dive in there with them, right? Show them the ropes. At least have someone there that can roll with them.
Yeah.
Right? Like someone that can help them grow, right? Like maybe you're like a 60-year-old guy who's been training for 30, 40, 50 years, like, and like, I can't be that guy rolling with a 20-year-old athlete, but, okay, but you have someone that can, right? Like, this is how you grow the program, right? Like, depending on what you want it to be. And also, it's also knowing what your identity is. Am I a competitive school? Am I a school that's going to compete? And that's our lane? Am I a family school? Am I a little bit of both?
Yep.
And how do I cater to these audiences, right? Like, how do I cater to my clientele that comes through the door? Do I have enough to offer the competitive for the competitive students? If I want to do both, do I have enough to offer the families that want to come here for what they're looking for, right? So, like, understanding what lane you belong in and which lane you want to drive towards, and making sure that you have enough to feed both of those beasts, right? Like, whether that wolf is the competitive wolf or that wolf is the family wolf, right? Do I have enough to feed both of those, right?
Nice.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's some great advice.
Yeah. So, and I think, this is a fairly new school, right? How long have you guys been open? A few months?
October 2024.
Okay. Yeah. And I think from what I've seen so far, I've been here doing some of the open mats and whatnot. I think you guys are doing a great job. It feels like, I know Erica's been around the block for a while, and so, and I know Gloria too, and you're part of the staff here too, and it's, from what I've seen so far, man, I think you guys are doing it, and it's great. I love to see it. Now, you guys have such a great location here. And
yeah, shout out Legacy West Valley.
Yeah, let's go.
9054 Tampa Avenue, Northridge, California. Come check us out.
Come check it out, dude.
There you go.
All right. So, yeah, I think those are the things that really serve a school well. And I've never been a gym owner myself. So this is from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
That said, I've been around long enough to
You've
see.
been a coach for a long time.
I've been a coach. I've been a student. I've been at different schools, and I've seen schools shut their doors.
Yeah.
And I've seen schools open up and thrive.
Yeah.
I have seen world-class athletes shut their doors.
Yeah.
Because they're more focused on them, right?
Right.
For better or worse, right? That's up to them, right? And I've seen people who don't have a name in the sport have a huge school. And that's an incredibly successful program.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have a name. It's cool if you don't have a name. But if you want to run a school, figure out what lane you want to be in.
Nice.
And own that lane, right? are those
advice.
lanes.
Yeah. Oh, great advice. Sticking on the topic of industry, let's look at trends.
Yeah.
So in the 30 years that you've been around grappling, there's been some trends that have come and gone. Maybe some have stuck around for longer. I can't help but think of leg locks that you know, blew up on the scene maybe like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I don't even know. What I'd like your perspective on two things.
Yeah.
One, like, what's the trend that you think, like, you're so happy that it came into this sport and that you want to see continue to grow? And then maybe, like, what's your prediction as to what the next trend?
Next evolution?
Yeah.
That's a good question. It's tough. Yeah. All right. So the trend that I see that I love is the explosive growth of jiu-jitsu. I love it. I love it, but I'm also a little annoyed. I'll tell you why I'm annoyed in a moment. I love it because these kids are starting younger and younger and younger, and they're growing so fast and getting so good. It's like terrifying. You know, I mean, it's cool. Like, some of the best competitors right now, like, are under 25. You know what I mean? Like, I remember I was training with Mika Galvao when he was at Cobrinhas, and he was like an 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid. And now, like, I see him, like, on the world stage beating some of the best of the best. And it's, like, so cool to see, you know? Like,
100%. Shout out Mika Galvao.
Absolutely, man. Shout out, dude. Like, these kids are starting younger and younger. And what I love is that they're open to experimenting and playing, and because they're open to that, they're having more fun. And because they're having fun, their stick-to-itiveness, their longevity in the sport is forever, right?
Yeah.
And they're coming up with new techniques. Like, what's that submission that the Rutola brothers do from when you have them in side control? I forgot.
Oh, the buggy choke.
The buggy choke. Like,
yeah.
What the hell?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I never would have thought to do that. And I see these young guys, these young guns pulling that stuff off, and I'm so impressed. And it's like, it's so good for the sport because it continues to evolve. You know, my jiu-jitsu is grounded in fundamentally sound techniques. The things that you learn as a white, blue, maybe purple belt, right? It's grounded in that.
Yeah.
And I try and use those techniques to climb the ladder and create new techniques, or fold that into, like, some of the newer school stuff.
Yeah.
Make sure that I have this, so that this stuff, like the newer school stuff, makes sense, right? And what these young guns are doing, they're just, like, almost flipping that on its head too, right? Like, how do I just play and fly and just do cool shit and make that part of my game? And it's so fun to see, dude, you know?
At the highest levels.
At the highest levels. Yeah. It's like, so the Rutola brothers are so fun to watch because they're trying stuff. They're doing stuff, you know? Like,
shout out to Cade and Ty.
100%, dude. You know, it's and it's the next evolution of the sport, you know? And then what was your second part of the question?
Well, if you were to predict any trend or direction or natural evolution for grappling based on, you know, the past 30 years or so, what would that be?
Oh, man, that's a tough question.
Hard to say, yeah.
It's hard to say. I mean, I think that it's just going to continue to explode and grow. I think the next 30 years for our sport, jiu-jitsu, grappling in general, I think is just going to continue to grow. I think no-gi certainly is going to have more of a spotlight. You know, even though, I'll say this, even though no-gi has, and you and I were talking about this before we started recording, even though there's a bit of a spotlight on no-gi right now, it's still kind of seen as like the stepchild of jiu-jitsu. And I think that is going to start to evolve and change.
Yep.
And that's exciting to me because I'm a firm believer that if you, and I know that there's going to be people who vehemently disagree with me on this, and that's okay. And everyone's going to say, well, Gordon Ryan, right? Like, but I think if you're a blue belt in gi, you have to be a blue belt in no-gi. You can't get a blue belt from me unless you're a blue belt in both. You cannot get a brown belt from me unless I think you're a brown belt in gi and in no-gi. And I think that's going to start to bubble up a little bit more. I think people are going to start to go to both gi and no gi classes because they're going to recognize how fun both are. And for me, I go in ebbs and waves, ebbs and flows, right? Like there are some days I really, really enjoy training the gi. Some months I really, really enjoy training the gi, and I don't want to train no gi. And there are some days like today when it's raining, I don't want anything to do with no gi. You know, and there are some months, and I'm like, I'm done with the gi for this month. I just want to do no gi. And there are some that I'm like, I want to do back to back to back to back, right? And so I think we're going to see that evolve a lot in the next 30 years. And I think the sport of wrestling is going to explode quite a bit more in the next 30 years, especially women's wrestling, which is already starting to explode because of the complementary nature of jiu-jitsu and wrestling. I think they're going to feed each other, right? Little girls who started jiu-jitsu at the age of like 6 are going to go into high school and be like, I want to start wrestling, right? And I think we've already kind of seen that. And I think that's going to start to grow. And I think kids who start wrestling in high school will be like, after they're done with high school, like have the same kind of aha moment that I did, you know, like, I want to continue doing something. Maybe I don't want to wrestle in college, but I want to, this is kind of my next step, right? Like I want to come and train on these mats. And so I think the complementary nature of jiu-jitsu and wrestling will kind of feed each other. And I think there will be a lot more of that, right? Like the kind of like grappling that I mentioned earlier that I like, where my wrestling feeds my jiu-jitsu. And I think we'll start seeing a little bit more of that in the next 30 years or so. And I'm here for it, bro. I am excited about it, you know?
Very complete athletes that are coming out of all types of training scenarios.
Absolutely. I am so excited about what the future of this sport can do. Right? I truthfully, I don't know if this is going to be an Olympic sport ever.
You just anticipated my very next question. I was going to be like, okay, the $1 million question.
I don't.
Actually, the $1 million question is CJI. So shout out Craig Jones
100%.
for
That's
the $1 million question. But the amateur or professional level, like, are we headed to the Olympics?
I don't see it because the subjective nature of jiu-jitsu scoring, it's hard, right? Like,
whose rule set are we going to use, right?
And I think if it ever does get into the Olympics, I think someone's going to really need to scrutinize how we score, right? Like, what does that look like, you know? And I think it could. I would love it for it to be, and I would love for there to be structure around scoring and submission is submission is submission. A tap is a tap, right? But what does that look like in an Olympic setting? What if the match ends with no submission? Because ultimately that's the goal of jiu-jitsu, right? Like the goal of jiu-jitsu is not to score 48 points against 3, right? Like I want to see submission.
100%.
Right? And I think that's what the Olympics will look at, right? Like there's already wrestling, which is a point-based system, right? Or a pin, right? There's already judo. Is there a way to encourage submissions, right? So I think if there's a way to evolve the sport to force yourself into that situation, maybe you and I, we chat about this, make up some new rules after this, dude. Let's think about it, man. I don't know, you know, like, but I think that's kind of the next evolution. If we want to be taken seriously at the Olympic level, I think that's how we kind of have to think about it, right? And so, could it happen in its current form? Maybe. Let's see, you know. But I think that perhaps some kind of way to make it objective and make it about the submission is kind of where we should focus our attention. If we want to be on the Olympic level, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, welcome back. We are continuing with Professor Uday Malhotra, and we're going to look at some cross-training and lifestyle tips for grappling. So we talked about, your personal journey, which involves a lot of cross-training, right? A lot of exposure to different grappling arts over the years. And I think you spoke eloquently about your mindset, and how that carries over from the competition mats, the wrestling mats, to jiu-jitsu school, and so on. If we take a moment to address, somebody who's not a professional athlete in jiu-jitsu, somebody who might have a full-time job, might have multiple jobs, family, etc., whatever, many responsibilities outside of the mat. What's your advice to somebody, starting out or maybe they've done jiu-jitsu for a little bit and they're hooked, like they love it, but they want to maybe augment their training or complement their training with something, be that, you know, strength training or cardio, maybe flexibility, nutrition. Like for somebody with limited time, what suggestions, what recommendations would you give them?
It's a great question. I think there's a couple things there, right? So when we talk about cross-training, I think, like I said earlier, this is a lifetime journey, right? Like, so let's explore, right? Let's explore being well-rounded grapplers. And what does that look like? I mean, certainly refining the submission game on the ground, right?
Yeah.
How do we get to the ground? Let's explore that. Let's explore wrestling. Let's explore judo, right? Like, you have a lifetime to build this grappling foundation for yourself.
Nice.
And you should bring in those cousins, right? The cousin judo, the cousin wrestling, and add that to your repertoire, right? Because we do this because we love it. It's fun, right? We want to become the most well-rounded person, a grappler. That's how to do it. Folding those elements in.
Nice.
And so, certainly, I mean, I would recommend people seek out guidance on wrestling, guidance on judo, learning how to get it to the ground, right? I mean, even from a self-defense perspective, everything starts on the feet, right? And even if I just do like a quick takedown and get out of the situation, great, right? For MMA, right? Maybe you want to be an MMA fighter. How do I get to the ground, right? How do I get my opponent to the ground so I can enact my will from a submission standpoint? You know, in a tournament, how do I, if I maybe just want to stay strictly to jiu-jitsu, maybe I want to get those quick 2 points.
Yep.
You know, maybe they want to pull guard. Maybe I want to get my quick 2 points. You know, like, so I think it's good to wrap everything in a nice tight bubble, right? So that I can have that well-rounded experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. So a little time spent, you know, rather than maybe going running or lifting weights, a little time spent in a complementary art, you think is
yes and no. And I'll touch on that too. I think the best way to get in shape for wrestling, jiu-jitsu, is to do wrestling and jiu-jitsu, right? Like, getting in running shape is great, but it's good for being in running shape. It'll certainly help on the mats.
Yeah.
But I'm sure anybody that came in from a running sport will tell you, or swimming, like great cardiovascular workout, they'll tell you, I'm a marathon runner. This is exhausting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it certainly will help, but doing this over and over again will help more.
Nice.
Now that said, there's certain things you can do, right? Like certainly running will help your cardiovascular situation. And I think strength training the correct way will help your strength and explosiveness, right? Like kind of what I mentioned earlier, the strength training that I did when I was wrestling was paramount in my grappling, right? Like I attribute a lot of my explosiveness to the explosive lifts that I did.
Nice.
Clean and jerks.
Yeah.
The best squats. These like pull-ups, right? The push-pull motion, right?
Yep.
Like these are really, really good exercises. I actually had a conversation with a buddy of mine yesterday, and he was giving me a little bit of shit. And he was like, Uday, if you took a quarter of the time that you spend grappling and spent that on strength and conditioning, you'd be an absolute, like, you'd be indestructible. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I could use a little bit of strength and conditioning, but then I like doing this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, but he's right. You know, like you should, you know, whether you want to be a serious competitor or you're doing this as a hobby or you just enjoy the lifestyle, like that other strength and conditioning stuff, it definitely helps supplement and kind of help with what you do on the mat, right? It'll make you better here for sure. Nice. So I think everything in balance, right? Like everything in balance.
Yeah, that makes sense. Balance is a key.
It's the key to life, right? Like
it's key to life. It's a key tenet of jiu-jitsu as well,
absolutely, right? Like so.
My old teacher used to tell me, you know, if you shout out Daniel Guillemette, Evolution BJJ in
Canada?
Ottawa, Canada, he used to say, if you think you're off balance, you are off balance, stupid.
I like that.
Leave the stupid in there, you know what I mean? But
that's fun. That's good.
Tell me a little bit about Gorilla Den and what's that all about?
So the term gorilla for me came from Van because she was like, we'd get Amazon packages in the mail and normal people take a knife or scissors and they slice open the tape and they open the package and like, oh, nice. I got my new whatever. Not me.
No.
I get the package like, she's like, what the hell did you do to this box?
Yeah.
Why is it like this? Why'd you open it like a gorilla?
Yeah, there you go.
So that's so Gorilla Den came from that. Like my Van and the kids making fun of me for the way I open things.
There you go.
And so like, and so it's also kind of like, what is a gorilla, right? Gorilla, and what is Gorilla Den, right? So like, my style of jiu-jitsu is it's fun and lighthearted and intense. It's strategic and it's playful. It's high volume, right? It's all these things that are seemingly contradictory, right? But they also work together. And so it's also like, this is gonna sound stupid, but have you ever seen like the Thor movies?
Yep.
You know how he's like, Asgard is not a place.
Yep.
It's like a way of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of how I look at Gorilla Den, right? Like, it's not my backyard. It's just a way of life, right? Like it's a, hey, I'm gonna train hard, and then I'm gonna go be the sweetest father to my kids. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go do what I gotta do, and I'm gonna do it the best I can. And I'm gonna be the best damn version of that I can. And I'm going to be welcoming to my friends, and we're going to train hard. And then afterwards, we're going to throw something on the barbecue, and we're going to hang out, right? And I'm going to be playful with my kids and train with them in the garage. And then an hour before that, you saw me and my friends trying to murder each other on the mats. You know what I mean? Like, it's a work ethic. It's just it's a way of life, you know what I mean? So that to me is what Gorilla Den is. And it's not a gym. It's just how I teach. You know what I mean? It's if you've been to my classes, if you've been to my private classes, if you've seen my videos, it's all those contradictory things that somehow work together. It's hard-nosed training. It's starting from your feet, going to the mat, grinding, and finding a way to just kind of move and be playful about it. You know what I mean? So that is Gorilla Den, and that is my kind of personal brand of jiu-jitsu, right? Like, all those things can live together and coexist.
So there's a number of places for people that want to know more about Professor Uday Malhotra. Places where we can learn from you, right? Tell us a little bit about the instructionals, when your classes are and where, and how to link up with you for private lessons.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram. My jiu-jitsu page is gorilla.den.bjj. And that's where you'll find a little bit more about my jiu-jitsu. I have some instructionals posted there too. A little bit about more of like where you can find some of these gear, just how I grapple, right? What classes look like. If you want a little more insight into who I am as a person, it's Udjitsu on Instagram. If you want to hit me up for privates, you can hit me up in either of those spaces. If you are interested in my instructional, I have a no-gi instructional available now where I kind of go over techniques on drills. I go over techniques on wrestling. I go over technique on no-gi fundamentals that work from the white belt to the black belt level. It's called Elite No-Gi Fundamentals with yours truly, and it's a lot of fun. I try to keep it as light and fun in that series as possible. And where you can find me teaching regular classes is at Legacy Burbank in Burbank, and it's at Tuesday, Thursday evenings at 6:30 p.m. and that's a no-gi class as well. I do offer gi, no-gi, wrestling, competition prep, all of the above when you set up some private time with me. So hit me up. Let's get to know each other and get you on that podium.
You guys, Uday's the real deal. Hit him up for sure. And with that, man, that pretty much concludes our time for the
Yeah.
podcast. Thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you for having me. That was a
gotta
lot of
be-
fun. Thank you for listening to me babble for an hour about my life.
Bro, no, absolutely. This is a pleasure. It's an honor. You're one of the first people actually that was like very, very welcoming, and just as you know, you advertised, somewhat intense, right?
Nice.
In the Tuesday, Thursday classes.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned that this was a good environment for me at Legacy
Nice.
for a number of reasons, and you're one of those main reasons. So, yeah, thank you for joining us. And
I really appreciate those kind words. That means a lot, man.
yeah, man. And stay tuned. There's more to come. We got some techniques and some more quality time with Professor Uday.
Let's go.
Us.
Us.